Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as the World Health Organization warns of the prospect of mass starvation in war-stricken Sudan, we speak to the former director of Médecins Sans Frontières, also known as Doctors Without Borders, about the devastation being wrought on the Darfuri city of Fasher. Also, as Ghana moves closer to unlocking millions more of a hard-won debt restructuring deal from the IMF, I hear from business leaders who have headed out on the road across Europe, focusing on the light on the end of the tunnel in the hope of drumming up vital diasporic investment. And Kenyan and Nigerian content producers who use Facebook and Instagram will be paid by Meta, joining Egypt and South Africa as some of the only African nations to benefit from similar terms. But first, the World Health Organization has warned that 14 months of war has led to the very real risk of mass starvation in parts of Sudan. The besieged Darfuri city of El Fasher is of particular concern as the RSF paramilitary tries to wrest control of it from the Sudanese army. Our Aline Botin has spoken to the ex-president of Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, an aid group that says that the situation in El Fasher is desperate.
Well, the situation in El Fasher is a disaster. Hospital after hospital, the RSF have bombed systematically, deliberately, unintentionally. This is not quite clear in my mind, but the result is quite clear itself. There is no way for people to receive medical treatment, let alone surgical treatment when they are wounded. And when you have a lot of bombardments, as it was the case in El Fasher, you have, of course, a number of wounded who can't find any resource to be treated. So the situation is a disaster. And to this disaster, specifically in El Fasher, you have to add the disaster which has been developing in the nearby internally displaced person camp, which is in Zamzam, where starvation has caused widespread malnutrition, both in Zamzam and in West Darfur. So the situation is only going from bad to worse.
And compared to some other conflicts in the world, why do you think that Sudan gets so little media attention?
Sudan is a mediatic desert, of course. There's no journalists there. There's no journalists because probably most of the big magazines, journal, TV channels have other priorities, which are the war in Ukraine and the war in Israel, Palestine. It's hard to, it's always the case. When you have two major crises ongoing, you don't have room, you don't have space for a third one. And add to this that Sudan is far away, that for most people it's an unknown destination, and of course the fact that journalists can't access to the country because they're not getting visas. And the Sudanese government, can we speak of a Sudanese government these days? Because it's just a government army, but a government administration, I think that would be going too far. So there is no delivery of visa. So it's very dangerous for the journalists, both because they don't have visa and because the situation, the war situation, is dangerous. So all this, I think, explains that there is no media coverage for Sudan, which is highly regrettable. Médecins Sans Frontières, for instance, is trying to raise awareness about what's going on in Sudan, trying to get journalists to speak about Sudan, and I'm happy to do so now in France 24. But for instance, we are expecting, we strongly need the presence of the World Food Programme in order to distribute food aid in the refugee, in the IDP camp and elsewhere. And for the time being, they're not in the field because they consider it too dangerous to be there.
Now, on Wednesday, Ghana moved a step closer to unlocking millions in support from the International Monetary Fund by setting a deal to restructure debt owed to creditor nations. The tricky negotiations were necessary for Accra to meet the terms of a $3 billion loan package from the IMF and count on getting the next lot of funding, a whopping $360 million. Now, Ghana's emerging from an economic crisis that saw it default on overseas debt in 2022. Growth has also taken a hit from global economic shocks like the effects of climate change on cocoa crops, the war in Ukraine, and just this week, its currency, the cedi, weakened to record lows. But despite all this, growth, albeit subdued, does continue, with the African Development Bank expecting it to hit 3.4% this year and pick up further in 2025. And Ghana's keen to reassure investors that it is a safe bet. Joining me now is the CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Centre, Yofi Grant. Yofi, thanks so much for squeezing in the time to speak to me whilst you're out on the road. So you're in Paris as you head out across Europe on this investment road trip. Now, bearing in mind just some of the turbulence we've seen in the country's economic recent history, what do you hope that investors will see when it comes to Ghana's potential?
Well, I think underlying Ghana's potential are some basics that are pretty attractive to investors. For example, the fact that we are a pretty politically stable country and we have a penchant for a love for the rule of law. And secondly, or thirdly, should I say, I always say that we have been blessed to be in the center of the world. Ghana is the only country on latitude zero, longitude zero. So in terms of logistics, we are so well positioned. But we are also a country that, in my own words, I describe with the 3 O's. A country of opportunity, a country of openness, and a country of optimism. And the recent uptick on the economy shows the resilience that we have. And we are very optimistic that once we are able to stabilize the economy, we'll go back into growth mode and in Depeche mode, as I say. And indeed, that is where we are seeing. So I think Ghana is a place to watch. Currently headquarters of the AFCTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and with significant transformative policies. For example, educating our young people to ensure that in the short term, the minimum education of the average Ghanaian will be high school education. We've started a nascent industrialization policy called One District, One Factory, where we are building factories in each of our districts. And we are a resource-rich country, as in the opportunities. Gold, diamonds, timber, bauxite, lithium, iron ore, oil and gas, manganese are all raw materials which we can convert. And under a Ghana Beyond Aid, which our president has clearly expressed, that we want to go beyond aid and seek partnerships for linkages and trade. And I think that Ghana becomes a paradise for the investor because we are very open and we are optimistic as well.
Well, you can understand why there are some caution when it comes to Ghana, bearing in mind just some of the troubles that it's been through. But you're also hoping that historic connections to the continent might actually draw a certain demographic of investor to you. Tell us more about that.
Absolutely. We believe, and Ghana has this pedigree of performance from its history right through to today. So we're leveraging on the relationships that we've had in the past, and we see that a strong constituency of Ghanaians are in the diaspora. And when you look at what they've done so far, for example, that in the fact that in 2022, inward remittances that were registered alone was about $4.7 billion. That's even much more than the IMF is giving to us. So we need to leverage that dividend into real development. And so for us, the Ghanaian in the diaspora, and it's just not even the Ghanaian, the African in the diaspora is a very strong tool de force in contributing to the transition of the continent financially, economically, and could be a point in changing the narrative.
So are you hoping for financial investment, or is there also a focus on the potential human capital that could be that could be capitalized on there when it comes to exploiting that diasporic link between Ghana and potential investors?
It's a combination of a lot of that. first, the cultural relationships that they've established. The diaspora are good ambassadors of Ghana to the countries in which they are, but they're also very good bridges into the economies of those countries. So they can bring to bear partnerships and relationships that they formed, apart from the capital that they bring as investment. And they also bring in state-of-the-art and best practices from countries in which they are, which have seen successes. So we do have a multiple matrix of factors that makes the diaspora a very important, perspective of our development and transformation agenda. And I take use of that, yeah.
Yofi, Grant, thank you so much for speaking to me as you head out on the road across Europe, trying to make more links in the diaspora and drum up more investment in Ghana. We're moving on, though, to Nigeria, where Wednesday marked Democracy Day, and President Bola Tinubu tried to reassure the country that economic reforms that have deepened hardship since he came into office last year would bear fruit, and that there would be no about turn when it came to those changes. But adding to the chorus of discontent about some of the changes overseen under his administration are those for whom a change of national anthem has fallen flat. Clarice Fortuné has more.
A song at the heart of a national controversy. The students are performing this new national anthem, which originated in a colonial era and was recently revived by Nigerian President Bola Tinubu. A decision seen by some as a distraction from the depth of the worst economic crisis in a generation.
That shouldn't be something Nigeria is talking about to do now. I think that should be something else we should focus on. Like the crisis going on, like the prices of foodstuffs, fuel, transportation, how no job and all of those things. I think that should be more important.
Nigeria's economy has plunged during Tinubu's first year in office, with inflation reaching a 28-year high of 33.20%. The independence anthem, repealed in 1978, was written by a Briton during British colonial rule, with lyrics using words like tribe and native.
Westerners have never referred to themselves as tribes or natives. They've always used it to refer to other people. And if you look at native, they don't use it. They use other expressions. They use Britishers, they use Britons, they use the name of who they are, never calling them native. So that is a condescending language that was reserved for colonies. It's an imperialist language, and it's a shame that we are embracing it.
The newly revived national anthem also caused some confusion on the international scene. The old anthem was erroneously played before a World Cup qualifying match in Benin, drawing the ire of the Nigeria Football Federation.
Well, from this month, Facebook and Instagram's parent company, Meta, has to pay Kenyan and Nigerian content producers using their platform. Until now, only Egypt and South Africa were the African countries to benefit from terms like this. Our team reports from Nairobi.
Shiluba is preparing his latest video. This influencer uses social media to get visibility and promote his dance lessons. But until now, he had never been paid by the platforms.
There has to be an incentive for me to go through all that hassle. I'm more incentivized to push and make my content more high quality if I know there's a benefit. So this is a welcome move. It shows African or Kenyan content creators that they have a space at the table.
From now on, Shiluba will be paid on his mobile phone. Authorities negotiated with Meta directly. Kenya is hoping to create revenue through digital content. Around 20% of the population uses social media. More and more young people see this as an opportunity.
It's a bit late because we've been making content for a while now. I think with financial support, a lot of people would be a lot more confident and encouraged to join the content creator space.
But experts are warning that the sector is not sufficiently regulated in Kenya.
How are they going to equate the kind of pay that content creators are able to make? And we already know that the algorithms are not fair. They are skewed toward the global north and not the global south. So there are a lot of shifts and changes that will need to happen while the monetization is being processed.
Several platforms have faced criticism due to unequal payment received by content creators. On some social media platforms, with an equal number of views, an American earns 10 times more than an African.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, though. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.